Okay, so the first thing that we need, of course, is importing a library. Then for creating a new global hook, the only thing that we need here is use count, and that's it. That's a global state hook that you're able to use across all your components, and it's going to share the state without you having to use context. We don't need this interface anymore because the hooks, they are use generic types, so we're able to recognize which type of component it is. As you're able to see, we have a state hook that is a type number, and the setter of this hook is also for a numeric value. So if we go, the only modification that we need to do here, where we previously were consuming a context, is that now we receive a hook. So it's going to work basically the same than the use state, and that's it. You see, now we have the count that is a number, and we're rendering that count. I make some extra changes here in the count setter. We're going to come back to separate the manipulation of the state from the actual data that is in the state later. So let's just keep reviewing this. And the only pending thing in this example is remove the count provider. We don't need the count provider anymore. So we remove this, and that's it. Voila. So we have now our example working, and we're sharing information between 3 different components with just one line of code. The only thing that you need is to create a global state hook as the default value. Of course, there is more configuration on the README in the NPM package, but for starting, this is what you're looking for. You're looking for a quick option for being able to share the state between different components. Here you're able to see you are sharing the state, no issues. Okay, so of course with the React context, we were able to separate the manipulation of the state from the actual data that we're sharing on the state. So how can we accomplish the same behavior but with React global state hooks? Okay, so instead of create global state, the only thing that we need to change is that we're going to use create global state with decouple actions. So we just change this one, and this one is also going to work as a hook. So we have our hook, we have a get count, and we have a set count, and that's it. This is working exactly the same. We are not using this one yet, but let's see what's going to happen. We're going to modify our count setter. So our count setter, it doesn't need to use the use count anymore. We don't need this, and instead we're just going to use directly the set count, the global set count that we have here. Let's modify the name of this to avoid any kind of issue, and that's it. So if we update our page, we have exactly the same behavior than before, but we don't have the extra render here, and we don't have the tons of code that you need in order to be able to implement something so simple like this with the context. Okay, maybe you're wondering what happened. Okay, so yes, I have a global store, but I'm not able to, like we did previously in the context, to restrict the manipulation of the state through a specific set of actions, right? So before with the context, we were having just increase and decrease. We want to implement exactly the same now, but with the global state hooks. That's also super simple. For doing that, the only thing that we need is to come here to the declaration of the context, the global state, sorry, and we're going to add a second parameter. This second parameter has a property that is called actions, and these actions are going to be the different manipulations, and the only manipulations that we are going to be able to perform on top of our state. So this has to have the keyword as cons, and here what we're going to have is increase. These actions, they should be functions that are going to return a function. So the first function determines which are the parameters that this callback is going to receive, and in the second one we have the actual manipulation of the state. So for that we're going to just have like this, and this one is going to have the set state, which is in store tool, and our state is a number, right? So just that. And here for increasing we have this, and for decreasing we have this one, right? So now notice that instead of having a simple function for setting the state, now we have an API. So now this is count actions, so store actions. And the only thing that we need to do now is go to, for example, the count setter, and instead of having to create the functions or allow other consumers for creating manipulations on the state without control, we just came and we used directly the actions that we just created. And that's it, as simple as that. We're able to keep working exactly like before. But now the only way how you're able to modify the state is through these actions. So let's take a look, for example, in this one that is using the hook. If we pick up the second parameter, which usually when you're using the use state is just a function for setting the state, right? It has some extra functionality, but you can, you can send a callback, you can send a normal value. But here what you're going to have is the API. So again, we have the API, and this API has the parameters that we wanted to add. So let's say that we want to be able to modify for how much we want to increase. We're going to add a parameter that is going to be called increase by, and it's going to have a default value of 1. Based on that, now we're able to just increase by 1. And if we go and review the actions that we are also getting here, where we subscribe to the hook, we have the action receive a number, which is optional. So we're able to come here, for example, to the actions and saying that now we are not going to, this one here, we're not going to increase just by 1, instead we're going to increase by 2. So we modify that, and we start our counting in 0, and if we increment, we're going to be incrementing by 2. This is the magic of having a restricted API for our global hook. Also, if you're wondering what we are able to do with this function that we have here, is a function for getting the state. So this function, we're able to use it in whatever place, and we're able to get from whatever place, class component, JavaScript, whatever. We're able to get the current value of the state in whatever moment that we want. We're able to get this value from inside of the hooks, from inside the actions, and in whatever moment that we want, basically. And the same for the count store actions. We're able to access these actions from outside React, from inside class component. We don't have any kind of restriction with that, right? So for example, if we came here and we said that set timeout, and I'm going to wait at least like 3 seconds, so it's going to give us enough time for changing the state. And I'm going to came here and say that I want to print in the terminal the current value of the state. So let's save this, let's restore the page, increment this a little bit, and if we wait a little bit, so we're going to have count 10, because we just got the actual value of the store in that specific moment. Another cool thing that you're able to do with the getter is that you're able to subscribe to the changes of the states from whatever place. It doesn't need to be specifically a hook. So for doing that, you have a callback pattern, right? So you have the get count, you have to pass a parameter subscribe, but basically just a true false, right? So if it's true, it's going to allow you to perform a subscription. It's going to help the typing to give us these suggestions here, or this autocomplete, let's say. And with that one, you're able to subscribe or create multiple subscriptions to the changes of this state that we have here. It's going to return a function for removing that. And let's see how it works. So here we have a console log from the count. So every time that we increase, we are executing that, because we are subscribing from outside the React flow to all the changes on the state, as you're able to see. Cool, right? Another common option that you have when dealing with libraries for handling the state is that you're able to extract a little fragment, a little portion from the state. Like for example, when you are working with Redux, you have a select, right? So let's say that we want to do the same. We're going to have a context that is, or state, sorry, that is going to be a little bit more complex, right? So we have here this count, and it's going to be a count state, right? So we change it, cool. Our application now is not going to be working because we have to fix a couple of things, right? So we have the store tools, and our state is not any longer a number, so we need to modify that. That's why we created the interface, so the type, right? So here we're going to come, and instead of this, we're going to now manipulate this, right? So we have the first one, and we're going to do the same here. So we're going to do a partial update of the state. So we add more properties here. We're not going to have any issue with that. And now we have the trouble that the count state is not a number, so we cannot render directly a number into our components. For that, it's super simple. The only thing that we need to do is to add a selector for our global hook, and that's it. By doing that, we are selecting now just what we need. By default, when you add a selector, we're going to do a shallow comparison of the returned value from the callback, right? So we are dealing with objects. We're going to validate that the values at the first level of the object, they don't match, and if they don't match, we're going to re-render the component. If you want some extra customization of how or when to decide if rendering or not the component after getting the selected portion of the state, you're able to add a second parameter here where you have a function that is called equal, and you're able to perform whatever validation that you want to add in order to determine if the state changed or not. Well, after doing just those changes, so we came here, we update our page, and it's going to keep working exactly the same than before. But now we have that we have a different count. Okay, let's see a final example with this. We're going to have, let's say that we're going to have an extra component. This one is going to be a component 3, and this one is going to get a count 2 that we don't have yet. We're going to create that piece of data, and we also are going to modify the state. So here we came, we add our new component, and then we go here to our state, we add a new count 2 that is going to be equal to 0, and this one, okay, is because it's not in the state, so we just add it on the state, is a number, right? So let's see. So this one is a state, and this one is a state also, and we're going to again do a partial render. Okay, so we have our new component. We can change the name actually, so it's going to be more noticeable, right? So it's component 3, and let's say that we want here orange, right? So we have our new component, and we have here that every time that we increment just this one from the top, the count 1, just the 2 components from the top are changing, because this component 3 is just selecting this property from the state, and this property is not changing, so we actually don't have any kind of necessity on updating the component once the other properties change, right? I almost forgot that we have one last example, which is the snake game, right? Well, this is not a game, it's more like something that is just running there, right? So as I was telling you, React global state hooks give you the opportunity to communicate with the hooks and React from outside the React flow. Because of that, for example, you can communicate from a class component to your global state hook, or you can communicate from whatever JavaScript file directly to your global state hook. You're able to create a subscription, you're able to get the current value, and you're also able to modify the state. This opened the window for a lot of crazy and nice ideas, like for example this one. Here we created a new custom tag, so we just created a native HTML tag, new custom one, and inside we have a React application. So that's not impressive because you're able to just create a new route with React, and that's it, good to go, right? You're able to put it in whatever place you want. The issue is that when you use create new route and you render a component, you don't get anything. The method is a void method, right? So you cannot modify the component once it's already rendered. Well, you probably can by doing tricks, right? But with React global state hooks, it's actually quite easy and allow you to do things like this. And for example, all these properties that we have here, they are going to trigger the onChange callback of the HTML element, right? And that HTML callback is going to be communicating with our global state hooks, which are going to allow us to do things like these ones. We can modify just the HTML and get these values arriving directly to the React application from outside the React code, right? We're also able to modify the size of the snake, and if we want, we're going to be able to add a new component. Let's say that we want to add a new component, so we're going to have another snake game here, which is going to be handling his own data set and so on, right? Well, that's all. The library has a capability for doing a lot of very cool things. Please go and take a look on the README on the NPM package, and hope you enjoy coding. See you next time.